I listened to the third part of Sontarans versus Rutons yesterday. It's this four-part series of doing a big finish. Obviously, very, very obviously, it was meant to be a 4-disc box set. But like they can't do that so much anymore because people aren't willing to drop 30, 40 bucks on it. But I will do, if it's like 10, 15, fine for an episode. Yeah, I'll do $10 a month. I will do that because the economy is where it is.
And however, it is working. There's much more people talking about these on X in particular because they're affordable. You can buy them piecemeal. It's working.
They're affordable and they're not woke, right? So the third part was Sixth Doctor and Charlie, which is an interesting combination of Doctor the Companion.
Yeah, that never worked for me. But I put in Charlie with the Sixth Doctor. It never worked for me back when they were doing it.
I can't remember how it ended. They had a very annoying ongoing thing where that Charlie wouldn't tell the Doctor that she knew the Doctor. Right? And it just kept going, no. But I do remember some of those later ones were really good. Like Blue Forgotten Planet was a really good episode.
Some of the stories were okay, but there was always that between them where I think, why am I listening to this when I could be listening to Colin with Nicola?
Yeah, I see. I don't agree with you. I like them pushing things forward and trying new things. Here, 1 second. Paper Cuts. That was a great one. Let me see if I can.
That was the one with the draconian.
Right. But there was. This is Indian Fit. This was just a great like run. So you had Paper Cuts, and then Patient Zero, which introduced Where She Went. Which, again, I thought was a really good, solid story. It was written by Nick Briggs and Mark Platt. It's hardly surprising it's a good story, right? Patient Zero, Paper Cuts, and then the third one in the set was Blue Forgotten Planet, which was... All these things are excellent, right? These are all... This was a really strong run. I can't remember how it ended, right?
No, I can't remember what... I've got all of these, but it's been so long. It's got to be well over 10 years.
It's more. It's 15 years ago.
15 years, bloody hell! I've got boxes and boxes of these bloody things upstairs.
Oh, I switched to digital by now, right? I'm just switched to digital like as fast as I could. Frankly, it makes my life so much easier.
Talking about switching to digital, I better go and get myself ready.
I was going to say because you've got a show starting in 55 minutes. Right, so here, do you want to throw up the thumb again?
Time flies when you're having fun, and later on we'll be going at it. We'll be going at it. Type 40 live from 8 p.m. there on the Type 40 channel. Who News, debates, banter, and more with Shooty Gatwa, Millie Gibson, Stephen Moffat, and lots of other people too.
You got all those people on the panel tonight?
We have. They're all coming on. They're all coming on.
What's Shooty going to be wearing? A pot of yogurt. I am really looking forward to that. There we go. Yeah, Sontarans versus Rutons, Part 3, Born to Die. Again, this series has been really one of their best things they've done in a long time. At no point have you been lectured by anyone, and they always having very interesting TARDIS crews that you've forgotten about to a certain extent. So this one is the Sixth Doctor and Charlie, which were just well beforehand was who's the Children of the Future? It was so we got Nobody Here Is Real, Third Doctor, Sarah Jane Smith, and the Brigadier. This was particularly good. Who wrote that? Tim Foley. That was an excellent one. And this one was not as good as the second one, but still pretty good. Yeah, the interesting combination of the Eighth Doctor, Charlie, and Chris, right? Which is, again, these are TARDIS teams that you haven't really seen much of before. This is the weakest one they've released so far. So the drawback of putting them out monthly is when you have a box set of 4, a lot of times you would have a newer author doing a weaker story, but if it was sandwiched between stronger authors, it didn't knock the box set. So because everything about this is really quite good. The central idea is quite good and interesting, I would say. The central idea is good. The performances are excellent. I find the annoying thing that Charlie comes from the Doctor's future. She traveled with the Eighth Doctor, and then she bumps into the Sixth Doctor. And so she keeps saying, oh, and she has to pretend she doesn't know who Sontarans are, right? And the doctors, obviously, it's so obvious. We've all worked it out. We all worked it out really, really quickly. You got, again, great cast. You got Christopher Ryan, was it Mike from The Young Ones, who was also the Sontaran general. And I think he's been in a few things. You've got Dan Starkey, always a great Sontaran. And also John Colcher as a Sontaran. Really good, right? Really, really good. And you've got an interesting central premise as well. However, it's all a bit flat, right? It's all a bit flat. And I think this is because it's the writer, Tegan Burns' first writing credit for Doctor Who. I don't know what else she's written before. She was in a writing workshop with, who was it? They say on the making of it at the end, with who was the with John Dorney, right? With John Dorney, and you know, I think they just want more women. So I don't know how much she knows about Doctor Who. That she says in the making of it at the end that I said I've always loved Sontarans. They're so interesting, but it seems to me that she doesn't really know much about Doctor Who. And something I think they really could have done that would have been more successful than this is the Sontarans by Colin Baker's era, by the two Doctors, were so freaking different from other Sontarans, right? You could have leaned into that somehow and explained that. And they see that's a fanish thing to do. I'm not so thrilled about this modern Sontaran look. Frankly, I think the Chibnall Sontarans were a lot more successful than the what was it, the Rusty Davis and Moffat design, right? I really think they really work well. And people hated the Sontarans eating sweeties. If it was done by a better writer, they could have pulled it off and it would have been better, right? But in general, I did like their Sontarans much, much better. But to be that, you've got to know and love the show. You've got to know, love, and understand the show. So I think maybe a problem with the script is they arrive on generic planet with generic poor guy, poor species being used and abused. But then again, I don't want to spoil the central premise because it's really an interesting idea. I'll tell you whether it kind of brushes against the idea of a Sontaran civil war, but not really. But the idea of Sontarans having civil war, which is like, you know, they're all about duty and loyalty. So like, you know, and anathema for them, right? It's like the opposite of what any Sontaran. That's an interesting. But another interesting thing is that the Doctor's paired up with a Sontaran detective. I think a Sontaran as a companion. And again, I think that had a lot of legs. The idea of specifically the Sixth Doctor, working with a Sontaran detective to solve a mystery, that gets you inside the everydayness of the species, which that's where I think the interesting stuff is. Like, what do they do when they're not, plugging in their probic vent? She cried. What are Sontarans, every day like? Do they do anything other than war? Well, they must, because they have scientists. They have a society, right? So just in the same way. Just I think other examples of I've always felt it's interesting. Like, do Daleks do drums, right? What would Dalek art be like? That sort of thing. I find those really interesting questions. Let's have a read of the blurb about. The war between the Sontarans and the Rutons has been going on for a millennia, and it's likely to continue for a millennia more. A terrible conflict with no care for consequence or collateral damage. Billions have died with no end in sight. There was actually a very good, I haven't read this for years, a very good BBC novel called The Infinity Doctors, I think by Lance Parkin, which had, I think it was an alternative Paul McGann Doctor who was on Gallifrey, but they had a central thing where they tried to bring a peace between the Sontarans and the Rutons, and they actually did at the end, right? That really worked. It reached can encompass Ancient Ireland. Well, that was the first one. Again, I thought that was quite a good one. And a forest world in the far future. Encounters with a unit and a Doctor No More. account with the unit, so they did it, and a doctor. So this is the forest world in the far future. From outside, these battles, it seems disconnected, but something is a common thread, and unpicking them could destroy everything. Well, so far, I haven't really seen a continuing thread throughout this series, right? There hasn't been, other than they had Sontarans and Rutons in it. Like they had somewhat mystery set up in the first one, didn't address them in the second or third one. Mysteries in the second one, which they didn't address in the third one or first one, right? So hopefully they're going to wrap up in the third one. When on a trip to the planet Taxodon, and again, it's just a bit generic planet, which is the problem, goes wrong. The Doctor finds himself with mere hours to prove himself innocent of murdering a Sontaran. As more die, the Doctor and Charlie need to uncover the cause of why the Sontarans are even on this planet, if they have time. So that kind of works, right? That generally speaking kind of works, and I enjoyed that. Look, I guess it's because Tegan, Byrne, it hasn't done much work yet, as far as I know, right? And I don't think it was. Again, the script didn't feel like it was lecturing you about morality while being moral in of itself, right? I think that's the case, which is the sweet spot you really want to get to, which they can't get to. When they want to do a morality play, they always just go into lecturing, right? Badly, because I think they're doing it by agenda rather than by an idea. Is this one a recommend, right? Is this one a recommend? I don't know, right? I have to hear the next part to really understand. I don't regret buying it. Again, it doesn't have all the hallmarks of the things I've hated in Big Finish. Instead, it just tries to tell a story, and Tegan Byrne talks in the making of at the end about how hard a process that was, right? So this went through many rewrites, she said, and different ideas. And again, I think that John Dorney was trying to hammer it into some kind of usable structure, and he got there mostly, but it's just a bit unengaging, right? I think that's my criticism of it. Let's see what's going backstage. Okay, so Born to Die has been written by Tegan Byrne, a name which may be familiar to Big Finish users. Her acting credits are Ronnie takes on the world as Runa. No, I didn't say. In the most recent pair of the War Doctor Begins. Well, that recent pair was shit. And this marks Tegan's Big Finish writing debut after being recruited by script trainer John Dorney. John simply said to me, the story needs to be the Doctor, his companion, a Sontaran, and a Ruton on a planet. Whatever happens is up to you. And that was it. It was completely open. I think when you're writers, you need to give them more guidelines. You need to give them more of a shopping list. It was definitely a challenge. There was lots of Doctor Who laws and previous storyline, which I honestly had a little idea about. Yeah, okay, so that's why having people who love Doctor Who write it, it wasn't so important in the 80s or 70s or 60s. Now it really is important, right? Because I think that's very core to it. There's so much of it. You need to know about it. And the only way you're going to know about it is if you love it. I really knew nothing about the Rutons. However, most people don't. However, it was a perfect excuse to watch lots of classic episodes, and this is a Big Finish box sets. I love the freedom and creativity involved in writing Born to Die, and it was more so finding the story to work alongside the other episodes of the series. John and the other writers were also supportive and helpful. It was absolute joy. Listen, I would, if it's something that interested me with it, I would buy more from this writer, from Tegan, right? Tegan, however you pronounce the name. I would buy more because it wasn't bad, right? It wasn't bad. And I just think with more experience, it's going to be. She's going to be better. Colin Maker says, I rather like Sontarans because they're very single-minded. They don't test or destroy everything. They just want to win. Well, they do kind of dislike everything. John Cole says, Sontarans are one of my favorite enemies. John Coleshire's understanding of Doctor Who is excellent. I'll never get the first time I saw links in the final moments of the part one of the Time Warrior. That is etched into that entire generation's memory forever. Right? He took the helmet off and the head fit the helmet. Right, the way Ken Lindsay played Links and later Field Marshal style. What a wonderful Sontaran he made, and I drew on his performance. To play opposite Dan Stark and Chris Ryan, as well the beloved Sontarans of this era, was such a thrill. I was quite giddy about that. So yeah, he's very, very gushing about being with the modern Sontarans, right? Which is why I like John Culture, because he drips with love for Doctor Who. He were. But he was very, very nice about Dan Stark and Chris Ryan's interpretation of Sontarans, and he said he tried to fit into the modern Sontarans while still bringing some of that what's his name, Kevin Lindsay, right? Still bringing that Kevin Lindsay, was it Australian, South African lisp the end to it. So is this a recommend? I don't know. It really depends on what the next episode is like, right? I mean, that's really was the next one. I'm looking forward to. It's written by John Dorney. It's the War Doctor. Oh, look, it's got a black woman in it. So yeah, we can tell where. Like, I can okay. I'm watching a show called Constellation, which is excellent. I'm really enjoying on Apple Plus, right? And the last episode was all about a character who was black. It was a black character, and it didn't feel like they were trying to say, hey, look, we have black people here in our show because we're good people. Whereas here it feels like it's shoehorned in, right? I'm not against black time. I wasn't against a black doctor, frankly. I really wanted Patrick Joseph to get the role where instead of Matt Smith. But then I love Matt Smith. I think a black doctor would have been great as a sixth doctor. I think that was a perfect time in history. Here it just, and maybe I'm coming off the whole Sullivan and Cross thing. You have this companion that's gone across unit, and the seventh doctor, and now the fourth doctor, called Naomi Cross, who just isn't that great at it, right? You know, they had to massively change what she looks like for the cover because she just doesn't look like she could possibly play a companion, right? They made her smaller, prettier, you're right. And again, I'm not ranking on her. I think it was injustice that she was cast in this role, which I don't think was her. And she was cast because she's black, right? And I think you need to see more of people than that. So it feels like this character is in there as a Time Lord because they're black. I don't know. That's the prejudice I have going in. I love Jonathan Carley as a War Doctor. I basically bought this set because it's got the War Doctor in it, and I'm glad they're continuing it. Last two box sets were cack, however. The first four were really good, especially the fourth one. Oh, man, it was basically Apocalypse Now with the War Doctor. It was really, really, really good. In fact, I might give that one a re-listen, right? So is it recommend? It depends on this on this part. If this part pulls the whole series together, I'll say, oh, and it has plot elements that you needed from the third part to see the whole story, I would say the part 3 is a recommend. If not, skip it. Right? If not, skip it. There's way better Colin Baker you can get. Way better Colin Baker and India Fisher you can get. My name's Tzvi Lebetkin, the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe. And ring that little bell. Ring the little bell so you're notified when new videos drop.